the Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know from the Tom Kelly Show.
Trigger warning, spoiler alert. Does this show smell fresh? Because it's an evergreen. You're listening to the Tom Kelly Show. So if you've been following the last couple of weeks, I aired a repeat from the year 2008 because I didn't have a show last minute and I was drunk. And I've decided I wanted to get some fresh shows ready to go that don't need to be distributed on a specific release schedule, because you deserve a new show and I deserve being able to live my life without fear. Now, would the world fall apart if there were no episode of the Tom Kelly Show waiting for Diane in Canada on a Monday morning? No. But Christian's nodding yes. Would there be? Would Mary Ann Stelmachek not be able to serve the sick people of New Jersey were there no episode of the Tom Kelly Show on a Tuesday? Would Fred the mailman stop delivering mail to the good people of the Midwest? If there were no, because
I'm shaking my head no on that, because neither rain nor sleet nor show nor new episode of the Tom Kelly Show would the USPS shirk their duties.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my favorite one was there was a Seinfeld episode. Newman didn't deliver the mail, and Jerry's mad, and Newman goes, "Well, it was raining," and Seinfeld goes, "That's the first one."
That is the first one.
What is it? Maybe it was sweet, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So the guest today is a man who kept me on the podcasting bandwagon during the in-between years of me not being in podcasting. Kind of like my Tesla stock. I sold at 200 and I bought back in when it was way overpriced. Christian is a solid podcasting investor. His show, the Bladtcast, is a hodgepodge, cacophony, whatever word. Basically, I
like the word, it's a smorgasbord. It's a word that doesn't get thrown around enough. You know, it's a fancy buffet.
And every week it's something different that might appeal to you. Sometimes it's political, the less so lately, right?
Yeah, I mean, I since the start of the pandemic, I've been doing a lot of stuff on my YouTube channel as opposed to some of the other networks that I had worked for previous to that. So I do have a political show that I do on YouTube separately. That's called Biden Time, because never let a good pun go to waste. And I sort of bridled against the name, and then I was just like, but I know it. I know that I love that name, so let's just go with it. And but I mean, it's like I'll do. We did a show wrapping up the Academy Awards, however long ago that was, maybe even last year, and then we'll just kind of do a movie review the next week, or we'll do a preview of the baseball season or the baseball playoffs if you save this one for even longer. And, and I love this episode being evergreen because I can wish my mom a happy birthday and no one will know what day we recorded it except for my mom.
Yes. And
it's her birthday today.
By the way, Mrs. Bladt has seen me perform more than my own mother. We came up with that.
That's true.
Your mom used to come to. So Christian is one of my friends from the earliest days of my stand-up comedy career. And we used to do show in the back of Hamburger Harry's at Gladys's Comedy Club. And Gladys. And actually, what do you remember about me from those early days of us doing comedy?
I remember that I would say from the beginning of that run to the end, you had only a handful less friends than you did when you started. I think that some people, didn't enjoy the experience. I had fun with it. I always had fun doing stuff, hanging out with you and everybody else that did it, but some people didn't. And It was tough. It's tough to organize something like that. I've known people that have done it later, and that one was sort of easy because it was like all friends, whoever can do it, there'll be enough time, we'll make it work. And then of course Gladys would have to get some time. I by the way, let me just say about Gladys, I still don't think it would stand up in court, but that's just me.
Yeah,
A little bit of an inside joke, but if you've ever seen Gladys,
so we'll be kind to her. But she was.
Oh, no, I have nothing bad to say about Gladys.
But you know what it was. But but I get where you were going with that. There was just too much. It was just, you know what it was. I think it was an impossible to win game in some ways. In other ways, 44-year-old me would tell 20-year-old me, relax a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing was when I listened to this iteration of your podcast, this Tom Kelly show with the amazing theme song that we got to hear a little while ago. This Tom Kelly, I think, could give some great advice to that Tom Kelly. And it would probably include, not getting into fights with people that in the audience,
and all though, we can't, and there's certain stories.
I'm just talking about it in general terms.
In general terms, fight with the strangers instead. That's a good.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's also, what it was too about that. Well, moments like that when it was the same audience every week for stand up.
Yeah.
We were like the one thing I learned was it was actually a brilliant stand up show. And Christian and I and the other folks there were in some ways ahead of our time. We were mixing sketch comedy into the stand-up show. Like I have a great picture of me without a shirt on trying to do some sort of a David Blaine stunt, right? Is it David Blaine? Is that the magician?
Yeah, that's the magician. And yeah, it was something with a bucket of water. I actually don't remember why. Maybe it was because he was like in that block of ice in Times Square at the point.
Yes.
Because this is like 2000, maybe 1999.
And that was, and you had my hand in a bucket of ice and I was suffering. And I don't know if the sketch was good or bad, but the picture is great.
Well, the only thing I remember about that sketch was that I wrote it very quickly because we needed to do it. And it had a line in there that the person who had their name used in it appreciated it very much and still laughs, that very infectious laugh.
Jenny joke Kramer was laugh.
Yep, Jenny Kramer. Now with a different name, but Jenny Kramer will put anything in her mouth for $5, not 500. So, if you knew Jenny, that couldn't have been further from the truth. That's why it was funny.
And I think we were very self-referential.
I mean, when the crowd is like 98% your friends and one group of tourists who accidentally went into this comedy club instead of another one, I think you're able to kind of do that a little bit. It was fun. I mean, we did it for a while, and there was the actual NBC talent show, which I think you and I have talked about on
we've talked about on your podcast so much. We can even skip that story just because I don't.
No, I'm just saying, but that sort of was the end of it. It was just sort of we did that, and then I felt like we didn't do what was called Sweet Polyester. I felt like we didn't do it anymore after that talent show.
It kind of, I forget. I know then everybody started going their different ways. And listen, there was a lot of talent in that room. A lot of talent. And you know what's funny? I want to say, like, I wanted to make the joke of there was a lot of talent and Bob Smith. Like, I can't even think of a person who would be the not talented one to make fun of. Actually, I got one now. I got one now too, but I don't know if I can say it and you can edit it out, or if we should just not say it. All right.
Because you might forget to edit it out.
You say your name first.
I got to think of what his name was. He
you know what? Let's stop because I don't remember his name, and that's a better way to leave it at. You win.
Okay.
You win. All right. You win. Because you know what?
Now you have to cut out the fact that I said his name just a second ago.
Oh, yeah. But like he doesn't even know we're alive. We do. Like, there you go. I'll cut that out. I'll cut that out. That'll go away quick. Yeah. But that said, you're right. I forgot there was a guy who just completely beat for beat did something from Saturday Night Live. Now, he did it very well.
Yeah, sure.
But all right.
Yeah.
That was hard.
I mean,
no,
look,
you're doing
Yeah, you could buy a knockoff of the Mona Lisa for like $100. It'll probably look just like it.
I have one. I have a knockoff. Actually, that's over there. If I turn the camera, I do have a knockoff. You ready for a funny one? That is a knockoff of a Norman, who's the guy who did all the Happy Rockwell? Norman Rockwell.
Yeah.
That's a Norman Rockwell. That has been that picture with the old man and the boy there. My father had that in my house when I was a kid in Brooklyn, and somewhere along the line, the picture got retired. But I always thought, because somebody named W. Gassman signed it, I never knew it was a Norman Rockwell. I never saw it.
Right.
And one day I'm at Josh Aaron's wedding, and that picture's in the bathroom, and I'm like, W. Gassman. And it turned out, and then I see it's a Norman Rockwell. I look it up. There's a name for it, and much like whoever did that, the Joe Cocker bit. Yeah, I could fall for it. If you never seen it, if you didn't know what it was, you'd fall for it and think it was original.
Somebody saw it and must have thought it was original. And by the way, I believe that what Tom did in that bathroom was in fact a W. Gassman. And if you're not watching, you didn't see that I just followed it up with a big smile because I know it's not that funny.
No, but it was a good, if I had the bicycle horn handy, I would have honked right there. So
my bell's upstairs. I would have used my bell, but I have my bell upstairs. My 6-year-old, or by the time this airs, possibly my 7-year-old. That was very funny.
Okay. Yeah. Now you and I shooting the breeze here. You do a podcast. Sometimes it could be 90 minutes long.
Easily. Yeah. That's when I'm not trying. And I don't count the ones where I'll take a couple of conversations and splice them together. Those can end up being really long. I intentionally did, I think it was our 400th episode. There was one that we had a previous record of 2.5 hours. So I wanted to break that record and I shattered it. So I did one that was 2 hours and 56 minutes, but usually it's between 75 and 90 minutes on an average week, sometimes a little less, definitely sometimes a little more, but it usually, usually we get to right around an hour and I'm like, I'm not done yet. I got like a few more things that I want to make sure I get to, but the hour mark for me is where I'm like, I really got to get to some of the stuff. So that's where the Tom Kelly show part of my show starts, is right at the 1 hour mark. So just jump to an hour and probably you're going to hear the best part if you listen from 1 hour until the end.
Now, why not edit out the first 30 minutes?
Laziness.
Is that it?
That's only partially, especially because I'll initially stream the show live.
That's right. You're a streamer. That's all.
So I stream it on YouTube now. In the older days when it was just audio, I would cut it a little bit, but I would find that first hour actually has plenty of good stuff in there. And, I think that I really like long form conversations, especially if I'm doing an interview with somebody. And if it goes really long, I think that's great because that means that they've had an interesting conversation. And
yeah, I love having the long conversation. I don't like listening to it.
Yeah, which is fine. I like listening to someone else have a long conversation. I don't want to listen to me have a long conversation, but I know I appreciate it when other people do, and I think people can say whatever they want about, Howard Stern in 2022. But when he started doing his interviews on satellite as opposed to radio, and I produced national radio, you could have a great conversation on radio, but it was really hard because you talk for 8 minutes, have 5 minutes of commercials, maybe get another 8-minute segment. And if you're doing really well, you could probably get 36 minutes out of the course of an hour, but you'd have these breaks. So podcasting, I felt like you could have a really natural conversation and it goes places you just don't expect it to. And I would find, the example with Howard, I would hear him talking to, I didn't give a darn. I don't know if I should swear.
Yeah.
I didn't give a hoot about Gwyneth Paltrow, but then he talked to her for an hour and a half and I'm like, she's actually really interesting. And that's because he's good at that kind of interview. Not everybody is. My old boss, Dennis Miller, when he started doing podcast interviews, they were much more interesting than the radio.
Was he better on a podcast?
It was much, just because it wasn't like I got to hit the plugs. I got to, if he wanted to tell a side story, he had plenty of time. You didn't have to worry about, we have to make sure that the affiliates can get to weather and traffic on the ones, you know.
Actually, silly one. I know it's a dumb question, but I think it's one that people would love answered. You worked with Dennis Miller so close in his radio and TV days. Is he really as smart as he seems?
He doesn't pretend to be any smarter than he actually is. He has a really good memory. He's said that. And he has really good retention, and a lot of it, he'll call it his monkey trick, is just referencing things that people remember from a long time ago, and the more obscure, the better. I was doing a show earlier today or 6 months ago, and one of my co-hosts brought up the show My Two Dads. Yeah. And he referenced Paul Reiser. And I said, I was always a Greg Evigan guy, because that's the obscure, that's the Dennis Miller pull, the other dad on My Two Dads. And I think that that's why Dennis and I worked so well together, because whatever his Greg Evigan dad joke was, I would usually laugh really hard. So, it got to be a little bit too much inside baseball, where the podcast turned into him trying to make me laugh. Hopefully by extension, it made other people laugh. But
well, you are giving co-host, and you are giving host when I podcast with you.
I try.
Now, in the realm of, I want to end on something original here, and I am going to stick to the minutes here. I just did a little bit of my radio writing here. I have 2 games we could potentially play, and I'd never really play games, but I figure you're in the radio business. We could either play Let's Get Canceled, or we could play One Must Go, where I name great things and you have to pick which one goes. Now,
by the way, that game could also get you canceled. One Must Go, depending on what the things are that you list.
And some of them are a little controversial. Now, Let's Get Canceled is kind of like, and you're an appreciator of old radio. And by old radio, I mean 80s and 90s. Shock.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not talking about The Shadow in 1941. Yeah, that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, that War of Worlds.
The Lil Abner Radio Hour.
Oh my God. There you go. And now you sound smarter than me. Way to go deeper. Now so let's get canceled, and you'll get the gimmick of it. You all you have to do is do the Christian Bladt groan. Okay. And the premise is, I was thinking about how Christian encouraged me to watch the Worst to First documentary about Scott Shannon. Yeah. And the early days of Z100. We've had long chats about the early days of Z100 on the air on radio. We've talked a lot.
I'm coming to you from the inside of my lime green Pinto. So that's how deep we go.
That's an obscure enough reference that me, your friend Eric Nagel, and 2 other people will get.
Eric Nagel just laughed so hard when I said the lime green Pinto, and that's about it.
That's all you need. So, but I was thinking too, like when you talk about how rough, and this wasn't necessarily the Z100 crew, but how rough shock jocks got. Everyone's talking about how edgy Stern was in the 90s. Stern was relatively tame compared to some of the stuff he inspired. So
yeah, no, absolutely.
So
although I did just read an article where Magic Johnson talked about when Howard was on Magic Johnson's show, and just reading that, I had watched that when it was on. I'm like, man, I did not remember any of this. That is really rough, very cancelable stuff in 2022. All the things that Howard said to Magic.
And what's funny is, yes. And what I found the opposite of, I can't believe we forgot it. It was one of the lines was Magic Johnson, you don't sound black enough. Now, Howard does identify with as being the white guy who grew up in a neighborhood that became black around him and was bullied. And frankly, his anger about it that he used to project on the radio is kind of distasteful if you listen to old stuff now.
Sure. Absolutely.
But anyway, that, and then honestly, talking about old Opie and Anthony bits made me think about a game that we can play called Let's Get Canceled. These are things you could talk about in the 2000s, but won't talk about now. Question 1, what tastes better, kittens or puppies? Okay, yeah, there we go. That could get you there you go.
That could get you canceled. But let's be honest, as heterosexual men, there's a very obvious answer for us.
And now, there you go. Correct. Favorite ethnic slur. Now, that's something that you could talk about, or not could, but have talked about as recently as 2012 on Joe Rogan.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
How about transgendered women in women's sports? Could get us canceled.
Absolutely.
Best
Definitely could.
Place of religious worship to have sex in.
Oh, I mean, let's be honest. It's going to be a synagogue because that they'll be the best food afterwards.
You just got killed. Christian, you weren't supposed to answer. All you had to do was acknowledge the question exists. Want to watch your co-host in the bathroom?
That got somebody canceled not that long ago, actually.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah. There used to be a channel named after that person. You may have said that word earlier.
Will your co-host take a poop in a public place that is not a bathroom? And then, if dared, what celebrity home would you break into?
Oh my gosh. I mean,
don't do it. You're going to get yourself canceled.
But I feel like David Letterman's is the easiest to break into. That lady used to do it every couple of days.
You know what was funny, though, too, about that one? You're right. Letterman used to have a stalker who was breaking in 3 weeks. And I feel like he wasn't pressing charges in the beginning. But how were there no copycats? Like, how did somebody not break in and then steal his grand piano?
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, especially you hear about celebrity break-ins, more recently. The fact that he wasn't home, that should have been like, oh, great, I'm going to come back with a moving truck,
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to come back with a moving truck. That, my friend, is a game we're going to have to play. But right now we are, unlike it. Now, listen. Unlike listening to the Bladtcast here at 20-something minutes, the theme song would just be over if you were listening to Christian's podcast right now. But
we have a great theme song.
the Christian Bladt Show.
No, it's called Listening to Bladtcast. You can find it on YouTube.
All right.
It's a minute and 45 seconds.
You know what? Folks, we're closing out the show with what are we closing out the show with? What's the name of that?
You want to listen to Listening to Bladtcast. Listening to Bladtcast. It's by a gentleman who goes by Shareable Texas.
You know what? I can't stop that. Folks, follow
his Twitter name.
Follow Shareable Texas. Follow the Bladtcast. It is, if you, all kidding aside, it's actually a great podcast, and he has a great collection of friends that you will feel like you're friends with no matter what they are talking about, whether it be sports, pop culture, movies, or whatever the parenting issue of the week is. That's at the Bladtcast. And folks, we'll be back whenever the hell we're back. Good night, New York.
Oh, would you look at that? There's a new episode of the Bladtcast on my phone, ready to play right now.
Listening to Bladtcast.
I don't want to watch what's on the TV. iTunes app, put on the BC. Podcast on, no talking to me.
Listening to Bladtcast.
Keep up on comics and movies. New phone ring, I answer who these. I can't talk, call back if you please.
Listening to Bladtcast.